Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was a controller of chakras and fall in love with Mirajane Erza Scarlet. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Prologue. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, recently inaugurated as the 7th Hokage of Konoha, was currently on a train to a distant land. His destination was a small country that shared the land of fire's far border, Fury. He had been invited to a city called Magnolia by Makarov, the master of a guild known as Fairy Tail. When the train reached the station in Magnolia, Naruto let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. As far as travel went, trains were among Naruto's least favorite forms of it. He far preferred flying through the trees ninja style. Upon walking out into the streets of Magnolia, Naruto checked where he was and cross-referenced his findings with where he had been informed the Fairy Tail Guild was located. Upon arrival at the Fairy Tail Guild Hall, he was greeted by a white-haired beauty. "Hi, my name is Mirajane Strauss. Welcome to Fairy Tail. Where would you like your mark?" "Pardon?" Naruto asked. "Master Makarov has ordered that you be marked as an honorary member of Fairy Tail." "Where would you like your mark? What color, and what size?" asked the white-haired bartender. "Flame like red, orange and yellow, so that the mark looks like it is made out of flame," said Naruto. "Over my heart would be good. And I'd like it medium-sized, whatever size that might be." "You may wish to reconsider and ask for a small or a large one," said Mira. "A medium-sized fairy tail mark over a man's breast would look ridiculous." "Then I'll take a large one," said Naruto, causing Mira to nod. "This will hurt," said Mira. "Only the small one is in a stamp. I'll be tattooing yours." She withdrew an inking drill and loaded a fairly large needle. "I only trust the large needle. It hurts more, but it doesn't allow much errors to be made." Naruto winced as she stuck him with the needle and pulled the trigger on the inking drill. A few minutes later, Naruto had a giant Fairy Tail Guild mark tattooed over his left breast area. "That wasn't so bad," he said. "Would you like some more tattoos?" asked Mirajane. "I am the most sought-out tattoo artist in all of Fury. I'd like a female, brunette angel on my right shoulder, and a female, pink-haired devil on my left," said Naruto. Mirajane hummed as she got to work. Once she finally finished the last of the devil that looked a lot like Sakura, she paused and said, "May I go crazy on the rest of your body?" "Sure, why not?" asked Naruto. "I'll take a few more." Mirajane let her Satan soul show a little as she grinned demonically. "Just put yourself in your most powerful takeover as the next one, then go crazy on my back, chest, belly, and ass. Save my legs for a later time." Once Naruto was all tatted up, Mirajane offered to show him around. He was introduced to the famous faces of the Fairy Tail Guild's most powerful mages. First, Mira introduced him to Erza Scarlet. Then, he was introduced to Laxus Drayar and Gildarts Clive. Mira tried to introduce him to Kana Alberona Clive, daughter of said S-class mage, but she was too drunk. He was then introduced to Myra's brother and sister, as well as Grey Fullbuster and Lucy Heartfilia. Alzok and Biska, along with their cute little girl, Asuka greeted him along with Macau and Romeo Conbolt, as well as Wakaba. He was then greeted by the Dragon Slayers, Wendy Marvel and Gajeel Red Fox. Finally, he was introduced to the man that would one day become his closest friend and strongest ally, Natsu Dragneel. "Well, war hero, let's see if you're all that you're cracked up to be," said Natsu. "I challenge you to a contest." "I accept," said Naruto, always prepared for a challenge. "Good. Meet me at my house in 10 minutes, Happy will show you the way," said Natsu. "We can discuss the rules of our little contest." There, Natsu made his way out of the guild hall. Naruto thus got the pleasure of keeping up with a flying cat as he followed Happy to Natsu's humble abode. "The challenge I have in mind is pretty simple," said Natsu in a whispering tone, even though Happy was the only other sentient being around. "Whichever of us seduces the most women in 10 years is the winner." "I refuse to mess with a woman's feelings," said Naruto. "If I agree, it will be changed to who gets the most wives. A simple harem building contest. Mirajane is mine, just so you know." "Agreed," said Natsu, not having thought of that, but conceding that the shinobi before him had a good point. Erza is mine. Let's shake on it. Natsu and Naruto shook hands before Naruto took off. Little did either of them know that their little contest would have ramifications that would be felt by all of Earthland for years to come. Naruto arrived at Fairy Hills, on his way to find Mirajane. He knocked on her door, smiling at her as she answered it. Naruto, get inside. If anyone sees you here, it'll be bad. Naruto obliged. What brings you here? MMPH. The last bit came as Naruto captured Mira's lips with his own. He plundered her mouth like searching a cave for treasure. I am here to claim you, said Naruto. If you have any objections, speak now or forever hold your peace. Mirajane simply sighed in. If you want it, take your skirt and knickers off slowly, give me a show, ordered Naruto. A flustered Mirajane moved to comply. As she removed her skirt, she wiggled her bum enticingly. Once her posterior was free from its prison, Naruto took the opportunity to spank her, causing her to let out a squeak as her cheeks flushed. She then began removing her knickers ever so slowly, Naruto all the while tempted beyond belief to skip the foreplay and move on to the main event. Yeah, that sounded like a good idea. Once Mira was naked, Naruto eyed her nude form appreciatively. Get down on the bed, on your hands and knees, he ordered. She complied. Grabbing onto the bartender's hips, Naruto lines himself up with her entrance. Go on, fuck me already, screamed Mirajane. Naruto smirked but complied nonetheless. He felt her hymen break as he invaded her moist tunnel with his throbbing tool. Once sheathed completely in her, he whispered into her ear. How do you wanna be fucked? Asked Naruto, sweetly and tenderly, or swiftly and savagely. Fuck me hard, Naruto-kun, said Mira. The seventh Hokage complied, pulling out before slamming back in as hard as he could. Fuck, Mira cursed with a deep moan. He thus began fucking her. With a swift and savage rhythm. He elicited countless moans and not a few screams as he fucked her. As he felt her orgasm around him, he let himself go, releasing his seed into her quivering insides. He then pulled out. Mirajane was on alert as his tip prodded her back door. If this doesn't feel wonderful, you are dead, Namikaze. She forced herself to relax as her lover's erection slipped past her sphincter muscle as he proceeded to sheath his sword with her painfully tight sheath. How do you want this one? He asked. I can handle this. I am Mirajane, the she-devil of fairy tale. Mirajane told herself. Fuck my ass hard, Naruto-kun. Get dressed, Naruto ordered as he retrieved his pants and boxers and put them on. He watched as Mira put on her lacy panties and bra, before slipping on her skirt. She then retrieved a fresh top, which she donned. Naruto then took off, leaving Mirajane to drift off to sleep, completely satisfied. Natsu eyed Naruto as they met at the guild hall. Any luck? Asked the Dragon Slayer. Naruto nodded. Who? Mirajane, said the ninja. Natsu eyed him with newfound respect. Even he would find it very daunting to seduce the mighty she-devil. Did you manage to collect her virgin blood? Asked Natsu. Naruto rolled his eyes. Of course, said Naruto. Any wizard or shinobi would. Great. I found this really great spell that will help our little contest, said Natsu, taking out a book and showing it to the ninja. Good God, Naruto exclaimed. That is exactly the same as a jutsu that the former Toad Sannin, the pervy sage, developed. It was so close of a match that the jutsu and the spell could easily be substituted for one another. Then you can help me cast it, said Natsu, taking out a vial of crimson liquid. This is Erza's virgin blood. Naruto pulled out a vial himself that had a similar crimson liquid in it. This is Mira's, said Naruto. When do we cast the spell, and where? There are plenty of empty ritual chambers at the guild hall, and none of them are booked, said Natsu. I say we book one with Gramps. Sounds like a plan, said Naruto. He walked over to the diminutive guild master. Gramps, Natsu and I need a ritual chamber, so we'd like to book one. What class of spell will you be performing? Asked Makarov. No clue, said Naruto. I'm a ninja, but the jutsu that pervy sage developed for a similar purpose is at least an S-ranked jutsu. I am one of the few ninja alive that can pull off an S-ranked or higher jutsu. Then you'll need at least an S-class chambers, Makarov decided. To keep it safe, I'll book one of the guild's highest ranked ritual chambers, a Z-class chamber. The tiny man handed Naruto a key. "Thanks, Gramps," said Naruto as he took the proffered key from the guild master. Naruto showed the key to Natsu, who took the key and led the way to the chamber. While Natsu prepared the potions that the pair would need to drink, the blood of their first mate being the primary ingredient, Naruto was drawing on the floor and on the walls with his fuinjutsu pen. "How potent should I make the potions?" asked Natsu. "Too potent, and they'll taste like Vulcan piss. Too weak, and they won't make the spell very strong. Make them as potent as you can," said Naruto. "I've tasted far worse eating Sakura's food pills than anything magic can come up with." Natsu nodded and added the next ingredient. He then stirred the potions 7 times clockwise and 7 times counter-clockwise. He then lit the coals underneath the cauldrons and left the potions to simmer. He walked over to Naruto. "Almost done?" he asked the ninja as he was drawing a symbol on the wall. "Depends upon how potent we want the jutsu to be," said Naruto. "Too potent, and we won't get a moment's peace from females wanting to mate with us. Too weak, and we'll have to seduce them the old-fashioned way. Make it as potent as you can," said Natsu. "The jutsu will lose potency regardless as it wastes energy fusing with the spell." Naruto nodded and proceeded to finish the array he was working on before starting another array. Once the preparations for the jutsu, and the preparations for the spell, were complete, Natsu handed Naruto a goblet. "Prepare to wish to retch," said the Dragon Slayer. Naruto nodded and tipped his goblet back, taking a long drink. He didn't stop until there wasn't a drop left, in spite of how awful the concoction tasted. Not wanting to be outdone, Natsu swallowed the concoction in a single gulp. "Secret ninja art. Mass seduction jutsu," Naruto shouted, his hands a blur as he made the hand seals. "Succubus art. Rite of mass seduction." Natsu incanted, making the correct pose. The jutsu was the first to take effect, followed swiftly by the spell. The flash of magic and chakra lit up the room as the spell and jutsu fused together due to their uniformity of intent. Natsu was correct, a major amount of magical and chakra energy was expended as the spell and jutsu merged. Once the glow faded, the funinjutsu marks were gone, and the magical goblets had disappeared. "Did it work?" asked Naruto. "Beats me," said Natsu. "We'll just have to wait and see." Little did the Dragon Slayer or his ninja rival know that far more was at work than a simple seduction technique. There was, after all, a good reason why ninjas and wizards didn't generally collaborate in the casting of their techniques. Because when chakra and magic combined, a power, as terrible as it was wonderful, was invoked. Kushina Uzumaki worriedly watched from the great beyond as her son and his friend invoked the combined power of magic and chakra. "I hope you know what you're doing, my son." Minato Namikaze wrapped his arms around his wife. "I'm sure he does, and if he doesn't, our son is a very powerful ninja. He will be fine, either way." "I guess you're right," Kushina sighed, snuggling into her husband's embrace. "As a mother, I just can't help but worry." Chapter 1. A Day in the Fairy Tale Guild. Naruto sighed in contentment as he woke from his furs. Night of Sleep is a guest and honorary member of the Fairy Tale Guild. He looked to his right and sure enough, sleeping peacefully by his side, was the first conquest of his contest with the powerful dragon slayer Natsu Dragneel. The lovely demon of fairy tale, Mirajane Strauss. He grinned as he looked the white-haired takeover wizard over with his gaze. She was quite the catch, and she was his. He shook Mirajane awake, smirking as she mumbled, 5 more minutes, sleepily. "It's time to get up, love," he told her while shaking her again. "Okay, I'm up," she giggled, leaning in to embrace him. Sighing contentedly as he embraced her tightly. "Let's go get some breakfast," he suggested. "Sure, just be sure to get your eyeful as I change out of my nightclothes," said Mira, chuckling at the dry humor of her remark. Naruto did indeed get his eyeful as the buxom takeover wizard changed out of her nightclothes into her usual dress, before donning a pair of high-heeled boots. The PA/IR then exited Myra's room at Fairy Hills and made their way to the guild hall. Upon arriving, they made their way to the bar, which was run at the moment by Kanana. Eyeing the breakfast menu, Naruto ordered 2 eggs over easy with bacon and toast. Mirajane ordered the same without missing a beat. As they ate breakfast, Mira and Naruto struck up a conversation about their respective pasts. They fell into an easy camaraderie, which only served to strengthen their already intimate relationship. After finishing their breakfast, the pair decided that going on a job together would be a good bonding experience. Mira led Naruto up to the second floor to look at the S-class request board. Upon deciding on a job, the pair took the request off the board and returned to the main floor of the guild hall to show the request to the master. Makarov looked the request over before smiling at the pair. This should be a piece of cake for a war hero and an S-class mage of fairy tale. Have fun, my children. As they left the guild hall, the pair's minds were firmly on the adventure that they were bound to have together. When Natsu and Erza arrived at the guild hall for breakfast, they looked around for Naruto and Mira. Not finding them, Erza told Natsu that they had likely gone on a job together. Well then, why don't we go on a job together? Asked Natsu after the pair finished eating breakfast. Good idea, said Erza, leading Natsu to the second floor where they looked over the request board. Upon finding a request that they found suited them both, they pulled the request from the board and returned to the main floor, handing the request to the master so that he could bless it. Makarov smiled as he read over the request that Erza and Natsu handed to him. True love between two wizards is most strong when the two work together and rely on each other. Have fun, my children, he told them after handing the request back to them. As they left the guild hall, the pair thought of their Ming adventure and of the adventure that their friends were surely having. Kushina Uzumaki smiled as she watched her son, his girlfriend, and their friends leave for their own adventures. She somehow knew that the adventures of each pair would soon come together and make for one grand adventure that would shape all four of them in countless ways. What are you watching, love? Minato asked his beloved wife. Just our son setting out on an adventure with his girlfriend, said Kushina. Their two friends, who are also in a relationship, also set off on an adventure. I just have this feeling at their adventures aren't as separate as they look on paper. You always know best, love, Minato told his wife while embracing her from behind. The thing is, Kushina continued while leaning into her husband's embrace. Neither request comes from anywhere in Fury. The request our son and his girlfriend are taking is a foreign request from Tokigakure. It involves the village's Jinchuriki, which makes it particularly suited for our son. The other request, the one taken by our son's friend Natsu Dragneel and his girlfriend Erza Scarlet, also involves a Jinchuriki. It is from Kumogakure. Well then, my love, I think Taki and Kumo are in for a shock, love, said Minato. I doubt that our son would dispose of one of his fellow Jinchuriki unless she was a threat to herself or others. That Fu girl is certainly not a threat to anyone. Also, no friend of our son's would kill an innocent. That Yugito girl is safe, too. Indeed, agreed Kushina. It also seems as if our son and his friend will soon find themselves more girlfriends. Kushina then told Minato of the bet that their son and his friend had going on. The thing is, they haven't decided on anything to bet with. So far, it is simply a gentleman's bet. Our son will win, said Minato. Of that, I have no doubt. That is the likely result, isn't it? Kushina mused. I must admit, though, that Dragneel boy is no slouch. Our son will have his hands full trying to beat him. You always know best, conceded Minato, content to simply enjoy having his wife in his arms. If it meant he got to hold her like this for the rest of eternity. He was fine with his wife always being right. The Jinchuriki of Tokigakure, the village hidden in the waterfall, is a green-haired girl named Fu, Naruto told Mira as they rode the train to Tokigakure from Magnolia. What should we expect from this job? Asked Mira. Fu's village hates her, said Naruto bluntly. If I was a betting man, I'd put all the jewel I had that Taki has called us to dispose of her for them. They figure that a team of wizards will throw a shinobi like Fu off enough that she'll be easily dealt with. Well, it's too bad for them that I'm the one who took this request. I am not going to kill one of my fellow Jinchuriki unless they are a threat to themselves or others. If this job is what I think it is, we will convince Fu to return to Magnolia with us. Mirajane nodded her head in agreement. I would not feel comfortable killing an innocent person either, love, said Mira. Will Fu become one of your precious people? Naruto knew that Mira was real. Why asking him if he'd claim Fu as another conquest? Most likely, said Naruto. I already consider Fu to be one of my precious people, so I will likely claim her if she agrees to return to Magnolia with us. I figured as much, said Mira with a quiet sigh. The duo fell into silence as the train carried them onwards towards their destination. According to Naruto, the two Jinchuriki of the Hidden Cloud Village, Kumogakure, are a man named Killer Bee and a woman named Yugito ni, Natsu told Erza as they rode the train from Magnolia to Kumo. Killer Bee is beloved by the people of Kumo. So so that very few would be willing to get rid of him even with the fear that his tailed beast causes. Yugito, on the other hand, doesn't have that luxury. From what Naruto said, I've gathered that why Yugito is only protected by the reputation of Killer Bee, who is her sensei. It would be easy for the people of Kumo to turn on Yugito despite their reverence towards her teacher. We have likely been called to dispose of her. Erza could hear the disgust in her lover's tone as he mentioned disposing of the Jinchuriki. If you're that uncomfortable with our harem contest, I could talk to Naruto after this is over and call it off, said Natsu. If you want to be my one and only, I'm cool with that. No, it's fine, sighed Erza. A man like you deserves more love than a broken former slave like me can give you. Natsu decided that he had nothing to say to that and they both fell into a comfortable silence, save Natsu's motion sickness, as the train carried them onwards towards their destination. Author's note: I will take this opportunity to reply to reviews. Daniel 29. He sure is, isn't he? As to your curiosity, unfortunately, the remainder of the harems is a secret that is only known to myself and Raptorcloak. Though I put some foreshadowing regarding the next members of each harem in this chapter. Mira is Naruto's alpha and Erza is Natsu's. Fu and Yugito will be introduced in the next 2 chapters. Fractures. Thanks for the compliment. As to your request, sorry but the content of each harem has already been decided and Kanana is not a member of either harem. Plus, this chapter was always going to be filler. The creator of Polides. Thanks, and I plan to. Guest 1. Mira is in Naruto's harem, Erza is in Natsu's. I have to even it out, after all. I also do not prefer to be called bitch. Guest 2. If I had a dime for all the shits I don't give, I'd be a billionaire. Brez. Thanks. One-time disclaimer. Naruto is owned by Masashi Kishimoto and TV Tokyo. Fairy Tail is owned by Hiro Mishima. Neither are owned by me. Just wanted to make that clear. Is Chapter 2 going to be the debut of Fu or the introduction of Yugito ni? Read and find out. Jinchuriki deserve love too, you know. And that's the final word. Because I said so. Chakra and Magic. A Collision of Two Worlds Chapter 2, Fu. Fu was shaking in fear as her mind went over what she had learned from spying on the council. The council had sent a request to a magical guild in Fury. The request was to dispose of her. Now, Fu knew what wizards were capable of and had no delusions about her chances of survival in a battle with one. She flinched as she heard a knock on her door. If it was the wizards from Fairy Tail, did she dare answer the door? Regardless, her sense of propriety won out and she reluctantly made her way to the door and opened it. Coming face to face with Naruto-kun. Before she knew it, she was in Naruto's arms as he embraced her. Fu-chan, he breathed. You are all right. I guess you wrote of the request that Taki's council sent out to get wizards to dispose of me. She asked, thinking that that was the only reason she could think of that Naruto would need to check on her. You could say that, said Naruto. Unlucky for them, they sent the request to Fairy Tail, of which I am an honorary member. The official wording of the request was that the wizard taking the job took care of you. While I'm sure they meant for the wizard to dispose of you, that's not how they worded it. So, as it stands, I am here to take care of you. Come with me back to Magnolia. There's nothing for you here. That would certainly take care of me, Fu mused. I like it. As much as this reunion is touching, interrupted Mira, who stood behind Naruto as he embraced the green-haired Jinchuriki. We are kind of on a tight schedule. Naruto-kun, take Fu-chan back to the guild. I'll contact the village elders and collect the reward. I'll then scout out the perimeter of the village to make sure that everything is on the up and up. Don't expect me back until tomorrow. Naruto nodded and picked Fu up bridal style, causing her to blush faintly. Once Mira had left, Naruto looked around to make sure he wasn't followed before leaping out the window of Fu's apartment onto the overhang of the porch below. Making sure that Fu was secured tightly in his arms, Naruto leapt up onto the rooftops and then to one diagonal to the one he landed on. Thus, just like leaping through the trees in the forests of the Land of Fire, Naruto leapt from rooftop to rooftop in Tokigakure. After a few blocks worth of roofs, Fu spoke up. Naruto-kun, not that I mind having you carry me, but I'm a shinobi too, despite how much lengths my village has gone to in the attempt to deny me that status. I can leap through the rooftops quicker than you can. I bet, considering this village has been my home prison for my entire life. I know you can, Fu-chan, whispered Naruto as they made it to the edge of what was Higakure's equivalent of a ghetto district, but if someone saw you flying through the rooftops as a shinobi, the alarms would be raised like that. What someone seeing us as we are now, however, is the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf flying through the rooftops of a loosely allied village, carrying what would seem to them to be a civilian or wounded shinobi. Considering looking slightly closer would reveal you to have no visible wounds. The observer would assume you to be the former. Their curiosity seemingly satisfied, they would find something else to draw their attention instead of looking any closer than that. Besides, once Mira reveals to the village elders that her partner in helping remove the threat from their village, as they see it, is none other than that very Hokage, so if they did look closer and realized that I am carrying said threat, they would assume that you are unconscious and that I am removing you from the village to dispose of you quietly. When in reality, you are removing me from the village to free me from my captors before they manage to dispose of me, Fu whispered back as they entered one of the poorer housing districts. It was slightly nicer than the apartment district she had been forced to live in. I see your plan. That's stage 1. Obtain and rescue, whispered Naruto as he adjusted his footing and trajectory for the shape of the roof he was about to leap to, which was enough different from the one he was standing on to warrant such a consideration. Stage 2. Make the perceived threat disappear, will be underway once we reach our first destination. Once we locate a secluded area past the outskirts of this village, I will harem us to Konoha. I'll use my power as Hokage to make you my foreign fiancé. Once my cousin is done with you, you'll look like a noble wizard from Fury. You will be soon known to me as Fu Uzumaki ne Koizumi. To you, Fu asked in a whisper as they came to the far edge of the housing district, reaching the outskirts of the village. What will I be known as to everyone else? First and foremost, you will be known as Fu Uzumaki, whispered Naruto as they hit the ground on the outskirts of Tokigakure. The wedding between me, and Mira will be held at the Cardia Cathedral a few months after we return to Magnolia. It will give my guild time to prepare for it. Otherwise, we will have to decide upon a maiden name for the public to know you by once we meet my cousin in Konoha. Then let's stop talking and move, whispered Fu as she removed herself from Naruto's arms and started walking to a secluded spot that she had come to as a child to escape persecution from the villagers. Once they reached the spot, she turned around to face Naruto. This spot is safe. You can teleport us out. She was no longer whispering. I don't teleport, he insisted. I use what is known as the Flying Thunder God technique, or the harem. As the name implies, it is merely swift flying, not actual teleportation. Whatever, said Fu, rolling her eyes. Just get us out of here. At once, my lady, Naruto said dramatically, causing her to give an even more exaggerated eye roll. He took her by the arm and focused on the jutsu. It worked. 1 second they were standing there and the next they were flying through the clouds at breakneck speeds. They landed in the backyard of the Hokage mansion. Come on, follow me to my cousin's place, he told her. As he took off into the forests of Konoha, Fu followed while rolling her eyes at her rescuer's impatience. Soon, they were standing outside an old manor house on the outskirts of Konoha. Even though this is now the vacation home of my cousin and her parents, it used to be the main Uzumaki homestead where the head of the Uzumaki clan resided. That it was until my great-great-grandfather, Naruto Uzumaki I, decided to will it to his second son rather than his first, an unprecedented move at the time for the head of a clan, in an ultimately unsuccessful effort. RT to get my great-great-uncle to return to Konoha from Fury. Oh, by the way, I am actually Naruto Uzumaki III. My maternal grandfather was Naruto Uzumaki too. Where is the Uzumaki clan's compound now, and why aren't you living there? Asked Fu, curiously. Oh, that place, Naruto shrugged. I've got the Hokage mansion. Now, and besides my poor cousin Karen needed a place to stay after the evil scientist she had been forced to work for. Orochimaru repented of his evil ways and became a senior member of the village council. I gave her Uzumaki Manor as a welcome back to the Hidden Leaf gift. Oh, Naruto-kun, you are so sweet and caring, said Fu softly, hugging the man, who was apparently her fiancé. Oh, by the way, when did I become your fiancé? When I saved you, Fu-chan, said Naruto. Marrying your handsome savior is hardly the most horrible way of paying off your debt, is it, Fu-chan? Fu shook her head. She didn't find marrying Naruto to be horrible at all. For some reason, maybe because he'd saved her, she was inexplicably attracted to him. The pair of shinobi entered the old manor. Fu followed Naruto as he led her to the sitting room, where sat a lovely brunette who was clearly older than them, but still quite young. Cousin, this is the shinobi that I need you to make disappear. Make her over until she looks like a noble wizard of Fiore's finest, Naruto told the woman, who smiled. That this would be her pleasure was written clearly over the woman's face. Greetings, young shinobi, the woman said to Fu, holding out her hand to the girl, who shook it. I am Evergreen Uzumaki. You may call me Evergreen. I'll be taking good care of you. As Evergreen led Fu from the room, Fu looked to Naruto, who nodded his head in encouragement. Steeling herself, she allowed Evergreen to drag her from the room. For all Fu's anxiety about letting a strange woman touch her and dress her, she found the makeover that was given to her by Evergreen to be strangely freeing. First, Evergreen had made her strip down to her birthday suit, which made her blush while doing so. Once Fu had been entirely naked, Evergreen had gotten to work. Fu couldn't begin to reckon just how many outfits she had been given to try on. All she knew was that it wasn't until Evergreen found an assortment of 13 full outfits that she liked on Fu, that the brunette was satisfied. Fu's shinobi clothes were thrown in the fireplace. Next, Evergreen got to work on the young Jinchuriki's hair, which she immediately decided was too short. Thus, Fu was introduced to the wonder of a magical hairbrush, which caused her hair to lengthen until it brushed against her mid-thighs. After styling the Jinchuriki's green hair, Evergreen got to work on her face. Starting with a creamy foundation, she lightened Fu's complexion by a couple of tones. She then made Fu laugh at the tickling sensation as she applied eyeliner and eyeshadow. She finished with a light pink lipstick. After that was done, Evergreen bade Fu to pick an outfit to dress in. Fu picked a low-cut strapless summer dress that was dark violet in color with embroidered black patterns across its surface. She then donned black fish net-style tights and a pair of black leather high-heeled boots. You look wonderful, Fu-chan, gushed Evergreen. I can't wait to see the look on my cousin's face when he sees you. You look like a noble wizard from Fury. The Anbu Black Ops will supply your papers. You'll just need a new surname. Evergreen rubbed her chin thoughtfully for a few moments. What do you think about Kuron? You got that from my favorite manga. Fu informed her. Really? Vampire Knight is your favorite manga too? Asked Evergreen with a look of excitement on her face. Of course, Fu replied. Kana, me is the most badass vampire in like ever. Fu giggled as she realized that Evergreen's question had caused her to act like, well, a girl, for the first time in a long while. Well then, I guess that is a yes on Kuron. Asked Evergreen. Fu giggled and nodded, feeling like the teen girl she was for the first time in. Well, she couldn't remember ever feeling like a regular teen girl. Well, better late than never. She reasoned to herself. I'll be 19 for, what is it? 4 more months. Something like that. Oh Kami, I can't even remember the exact date of my own birthday. Well, then, bet. Go show off your wonderful new look to the man you're going to marry. Exclaimed Evergreen, shaking Fu from her thoughts. Yeah, let's do that, said Fu, taking Evergreen's offered hand with a grin, and allowing herself to be led from the room. Naruto's jaw dropped to the floor as he caught sight of Fu being led into the room by his cousin. Kami, she really cleans up well. You better close your mouth, Naruto-kun, or you'll catch flies, Fu told him with a giggle before hugging him. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Naruto snapped his mouth shut before saying, You're welcome, Fu-chan. Now, what is your name going to be? I'll have the Anbu Black Ops draw up your papers on Monday. Fu-Kuron, said Fu with a blush. I guess my cousin finally found another Vampire Knight fan girl, said Naruto with an amused look on his face. That aside, Fu-chan, Kuron truly is the only surname I can think of that is elegant enough for you, save your real one. Unless we wanted to go for a Mandarin-based name, like Zhang or Li, said Evergreen thoughtfully. Fu is a Mandarin-based given name, after all. Rock Lee is one of my classmates, he would certainly be far too interested if a foreigner appeared out of the blue, sharing his clan's name, said Naruto. Zhang, or its Cantonese romanization Chong, would work. But Kuron is a fine name. I've decided on Kuron, said Fu with finality. Perfect, said Naruto with a grin. I'll have Yamato or Danzo assign someone to draw up your papers. When is your birthday? I've forgotten, said Fu. Sometime early Septemberish, late August. I'll just have them make one up for you, said Naruto. How old are you? 19 for 4 more months or so, then I will turn 20, replied Fu. So you were born in 96, Naruto reasoned. You were a millennial like me. This all is very informative, Evergreen piped up. But you need to return to the Hokage mansion in case someone wants to check in on you after hearing that you were sighted leaving Tokigakure. Everyone in the Hidden Leaf knows of the Hiraishin's capabilities, so they will likely have correctly assumed that you would be returning home. So they did spot me? Asked Naruto, wanting the confirmation. His cousin nodded. So escaping Taki on the rooftops wasn't a waste of time. He sighed in relief. It will be best if we drop Fu-san off at the Hokage mansion, continued Evergreen. She will be able to deal with anyone coming to check on you, and it will take care of introducing her as your foreign fiancé to the village. Then, we will depart for the Kage summit. I'll be the Hokage's guest. As a distant member of your clan, my presence won't be questioned as much as Fu's would. I'll meet you at the Hokage mansion. Evergreen then left the room. Shall we then, love? He asked, holding out his hand, which Fu immediately took. Focusing inward, he activated the Hiraishin, causing them to fly back to the place in the backyard of the Hokage's mansion that the Hiraishin seal was located. Locating his key, Naruto unlocked the back door and led Fu inside. He then led her to the master bedroom. After about 20 minutes, there was a knock on the bedroom door. Enter, called Naruto. The door opened and in came Evergreen, carrying a bag, which she placed on the bed. All of Fu-san's outfits are in this bag, Evergreen told them. The Kage summit starts in 20 minutes. Naruto took Evergreen by the hand and activated the Hiraishin. In a flash, they were gone, leaving Fu behind with a bewildered look on her face. Quickly regaining her composure, Fu proceeded to look through the bag Evergreen had left, which indeed contained the other 12 outfits that Evergreen had declared suitable for her, which thankfully included a nightgown and slippers, which she promptly changed into before lying down on the bed and drifting off to sleep. The Kage summit was held, as always, at the peak of a tower that held the distinction of having been strategically placed so that it resided equally in all 5 elemental nations and the 6th unnamed nation that was home to Tokigakure, as it was built on the point where all 6 nations collided. This way, no nation could claim the Kage Tower, as it was called. Now that this 500th annual meeting of the council has been brought to order, I have been informed that the Lord Hokage has something urgent to share with us, said the Raikage, the unofficial leader and chairman of the meeting. Indeed I do, said Naruto, clearing his throat. I doubt that this will affect any of my 4 fellow Kages from the elemental nations. So you may take a recess if you wish while I inform the leader of the village hidden in the waterfall of the news that I bear for him. None of the 4 other elemental Kages moved. The 4th Tsuchikage, for her part, even seemed more interested in hearing the news that the 7th Hokage had for the leader of Tokigakure. Very well, what I have to say concerns the request that the elders of Taki sent to the Fairy Tale Guild regarding the removal of their Jinchuriki, which they said was a threat that they could no longer abide. I can say to you, leader of the village hidden in the waterfall, that your council will be quite happy. I personally headed the team that located the thread in a rundown apartment in Taki and knocked it out before removing it from the villag to a place where it could be safely disposed of. As proof, I present the Jinchuriki's headband. He held out Fu's headband which she had given to him for this very purpose. The leader of Taki took the headband with a nod. My thanks, Lord Hokage, he said. I am sure the citizens of my village will sleep easier knowing that the threat to themselves and their children has been removed. Forgive me, Lord Hokage, said the Tsuchikage. But are you not a Jinchuriki yourself? I am, said Naruto. The difference between myself and most Jinchuriki is that my father, the man who gave his life to seal the 9 tails inside of me, was a Fuinjutsu genius. While he was not that great compared to my mother, who was an Uzumaki by blood, he was smart enough to realize that the best method of gathering enough energy to seal away a beast as powerful as the Kyuubi was by sacrificing his own life to empower the seal. Thus, I completely retain my own free will and am able to rest peacefully, despite the power of the beast inside of me. I used to have to be careful about using the Kyuubi's power, as any more than 3 tails was enough to make me lose control, but once I mastered Senjutsu, that became a non-issue. I am completely in control at all times thanks to the power in the seal that my father gave his life to create. Most Jinchuriki cannot say the same. Thank you, Lord Hokage, said the Tsuchikage. Your explanation was most informative. You're welcome, Lady Tsuchikage, said Naruto, kissing her hand in an exaggerated romantic gesture. Please tell your grandfather that I wish him the best in his retirement. My grandfather is dead, Lord Hokage, said the Tsuchikage with a tear in her eye. Naruto kissed the tear away, causing the Tsuchikage to blush fiercely. However, I'm sure he would be heartened by your well wishes were he still among the living. The Kage summit moved on to other topics, although Naruto still flirted with the Tsuchikage at every opportunity. As the summit ended, and 3 of the Kage and the leader of Tokigakure took their leave, Naruto was cornered by the Tsuchikage, who had a lustful gleam in your eye, causing Naruto to gulp. You aren't getting out of this, Lord Hokage. The Tsuchikage purred seductively. You had to know that teasing a powerful woman has consequences. Naruto learned what those consequences were in a most pleasurable way that evening. Dear Kami, Naruto-kun, you got yourself henpecked by the Tsuchikage herself, said Fu between giggles. That's what you get for teasing one of the most powerful women in the elemental nations. Indeed, said Naruto. Think I should contact her. If you want to beat the Dragon Slayer in this heat of your competition, I'd say yes, said Fu. Even though you betted her, it doesn't sue. NT since you changed the competition to who gets the most wives, instead of going for who beds the most chicks, like Natsu-san initially proposed. I guess you're right, sighed Naruto. I guess adding one more bride to our wedding won't be too much. Indeed, agreed Fu, with a twinkle in her amber eyes. Now how about taking me to bed? I'd like to see what makes Mirajane keep coming back for more. As you wish, Fu-chan, said Naruto, taking her into his arms and heading for his king-sized bed. Fu sighed in contentment as Naruto laid her on the bed, methodically undressing her before entering her, causing her to moan softly and wince in pain as he broke through her hymen. Fu was in heaven as her savior made love to her tenderly, gently, a far cry from the rough treatment any girl unlucky enough to befriend her got from the boys in the village. While disgusted by the thought of touching Fu herself, the boys in Fu's village were more than happy to rape any girl brave enough to befriend the lonely Jinchuriki. As Naruto grunted, releasing his load into her insides, the green-haired Jinchuriki felt contentment wash over her. Unlike poor old Anzu, Fu's best friend from childhood who brought Veli withstood rape after rape and stood by her friend, even though it made her a social pariah in the village, only to be brutally stoned to death in front of the entire village for the crime of being Fu's friend. Naruto would always be there for her. What are you thinking about, love? Asked Naruto in the afterglow, noticing that his green-haired fiancé was deep in thought. She quietly told him Anne's story before sobbing into his shoulder as he held her. She hadn't known before then just how much she had needed to get her feelings about Anzu's death off of her chest. It was very freeing to talk about it with someone who would care. Someone who would hold her as she cried. Holding each other contently, Naruto and Fu drifted off into peaceful slumber. Come Monday, Naruto returned to his office as Hokage with a spring in his step. Even the paperwork waiting on his desk couldn't take away his stellar mood. Shizune-chan, called Naruto. Yes, Lord Hokage, said Shizune, walking up to the Hokage's desk to see what he wanted. Contact Danzo, or if he's too busy with root business, Yamato, said Naruto. Tell whichever you can contact that I wish to speak to them at the soonest possible time. Yes, Lord Hokage, replied Shizune with a bow, leaving the room to complete her orders. Why would he want to talk to that Danzo creep? Shizune asked herself as she made her way to the Anbu base. Yamato-kun is perfectly capable of doing anything that creep is. Despite her misgivings about the Anbu root captain, Shizune entered the root compound and made her way to Danzo's office. She knocked on the door. Enter. She heard Danzo call. Opening the door, she came face to face with one of her least favorite people, Danzo Shimura. Shizune Heim. He greeted her. She always hated it when he called her that. What brings you here? Gathering her composure, Shizune said. The Lord Hokage has requested your insufferable presence for some ungodly reason, Danzo-san. He wants you to report to him at the earliest opportunity. I'm not busy at the moment, so I might as well go now, Danzo mused. Care to accompany me so that I don't get lost? It's been a while since the Hokage has requested my presence, after all. Don't give me that crap, Danzo-san. Shizune snapped. You know your beloved village like the back of your hand. Indeed I do, Shizune Heim, but I'd have to thin. Ka bit to remember the quickest way to Hokage Tower, said Danzo. If you'd accompany me, I'd be most grateful, Shizune Heim. Shizune gritted her teeth to avoid the biting retort that was on the tip of her tongue. Then let's go, Danzo-san. She turned around and left the room, not turning around even once to check to see if the creep was following her. Shizune took the quickest way back to Hokage Tower, desperate to be out of Danzo's insufferable presence as quickly as humanly possible. When she reached the door to the Hokage's office, she stepped to the side and opened the door, ushering him inside. Your show, Danzo-san. She took off to her own workplace, not looking back for fear of seeing the smug grin that no doubt adorned Danzo's insufferable face. I'm glad to see you could make it, Danzo-san, said Naruto as the root captain took his seat in front of his desk. I have an important task for the Anbu Black Ops. You see, Takigakure sent a request to a magical guild in Fury called Fairy Tail, in hopes of getting a team of wizards to dispose of their Jinchuriki. Unfortunately for them, I am an honorary member of said guild, and while looking for a job on the request board, I noticed their request. I assume you took steps to gain control of this Jinchuriki, Lord Hokage, said Danzo. She's my fiancé, Naruto deadpanned. Danzo eyed him with respect. You always were an overachiever, Lord Hokage. Just like your father, Danzo said fondly. With another Jinchuriki in Konoha, we'll be practically invincible. I assume you'll want us to draw up papers for this Jinchuriki. Danzo looked to him in askance. Fu, Naruto said, her name is Fu Koizumi. We agreed that her name will be changed to Fu Kiron and that she will be publicly known as a foreigner from Fury, a wizard of nobility to be precise. With an elegant name like Kiron, it'll be easy to sell her story. That'll make it even easier than my first idea upon hearing of this, said Danzo. My idea was to make her a long-lost member of an extinct clan here in Konoha. Your idea makes it easier to sell. I shall get some of our foreign agents from Fury to draw up the proper lacrimi. Upon seeing Naruto's confused look, he explained. They don't use paper for identification in Fury, it is all done over magical lacrimi. Naruto nodded. I'll also have my root agents draw up the proper paperwork to give her joint Konoha citizenship as your fiancé. Thank you, Danzo, Naruto said, shaking the root captain's hand. No, Lord Hokage, thank you, Danzo replied with a smirk. You have done your village proud, Naruto-san. You really are a true Hokage. Upon returning to Root, Danzo began rounding up the proper agents to draw up the proper paperwork that would secure the female Jinchuriki as a citizen, and therefore a weapon, of the Hidden Leaf Village. Once that was done, Danzo contacted his foreign agents via Lacrima and ordered them to draw up the proper lacrimi for the young Jinchuriki. If I were the Hokage, I would take the Jinchuriki back to her home village on a date, just to rub it in their unknowing faces that they've given up their weapon, muttered Danzo. I'll have my root agents set up a vacation in Takigakure for the Hokage and his fiancée. He called for the appropriate agents, and did exactly that. That night, Danzo went to sleep more content than he had been in years. Naruto returned to the Hokage mansion for the night. He had news for his fiancée. It turns out Danzo thought we'd like to take a vacation to your home village. He had his root agents set one up for us. Will they recognize me? Asked Fu. I highly doubt it, said Naruto. Your friend Anzu might recognize you, were she still living. Only a close friend would recognize you as you are now for the young shinobi you were before. This is our chance to test the effectiveness of your makeover, either way. Indeed, agreed Fu before curling up with her fiancé and drifting off into dreamland. Naruto followed her shortly. This resort sure is a good sight better than your old apartment, Fu-chan, said Naruto as they relaxed in the hot tub in their room at the resort that Danzo's agents had booked. Definitely, agreed Fu. But then again, I wasn't living in the ghetto district by choice. No real estate agent in the village would deal with me, and none of the landlords of the more upscale apartments would accept my business. My landlady was very nice to me, and I must say I'll miss my old apartment if only for her. We could always drop in on your landlady, said Naruto. Where does she live? She lives in the district this resort is in, said Fu. In fact, her house is just down the road. Then before leaving for Magnolia, we'll pay her a visit, promised Naruto. Thank you, Naruto-kun, said Fu with tears in her eyes as she hugged him. That night their lovemaking session was extra pleasurable for Naruto. Fu made sure of it. Fu, Margaret breathed. Yes, Margaret, said Fu. It is me. You look lovely, said Margaret. And your friend is quite handsome himself. Miss Margaret, Fu began. This is my fiancé, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Your fiancé is the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village? Asked Margaret in shock. Fu nodded. Then I wish you both the happiest, dear. I always wished that I could have given you a nicer place to stay than my rundown apartments. I would have taken you in, but... I know. Margaret, Fu stopped her. You didn't want to be raped and murdered like poor Anzu was. You know what would have happened, and did happen, to anyone nice enough to show humanity to the human prison of the Nanabi. Margaret paused a moment with a conflicted look on her face before sighing with resignation. Yes, Fu dear, I would have endured the rape happily enough if it ensured you a nice home. But if I had died, my daughter would have grown up alone, if they had not killed her for being related to me. They would have raped her at least. They have before, if you would recall, my daughter, although not precisely your friend, was friendly enough to you that she earned being raped more than once. I too have been raped for being your landlady at least once. Every year that you have stayed in my apartment. It would have been worse if I'd taken you in, even if by some miracle I wasn't stoned to death. I'm so sorry, Miss Margaret, Fu said solemnly, not knowing what else to say to the woman who had willingly accepted yearly rape to give her a roof over her head. She had been 8 years old when her mother had died, leaving her to fend for herself. If Margaret hadn't loaned her that apartment, she wasn't sure where she would be, or if she would even still be alive. You won't have to deal with that anymore. Margaret smiled at the girl's naivety. Fu, dear, I doubt that your absence will make much difference in the eyes of the men who have taken it upon themselves to rape, and therefore punish, anyone who has ever been the least bit kind to you. Your old friends from the academy, even though they stopped being your friends a long time ago, are still regularly raped for the sin of being friends with you. The men of this village will never let them forget that. It would have been better for them if they had continued being friends with you. At least, if they had been stoned to death, they wouldn't still be paying for their so-called crimes. That's horrible, said Naruto. Tell me where they live. We have to rescue these women. I will use my authority as Hokage to transfer them and you to the Hidden Leaf. I will not have people being raped for being nice to my fiancé. Margaret quickly told the Hokage where the girls lived. Naruto, firmly in Hokage mode, told Margaret to pack up her things and take the nearest train to Konoha. Fu watched in awe as her fiancé stalked off in righteous anger, and quickly followed him. As he made his way to the first girl's house, Fu watched with anticipation. As Naruto talked to the girl, Fu watched the life return to the girl's face. Naruto had given the girl hope. The same happened at the next girl's house, and every house after that. After a few minutes of talking with Naruto, each girl was filled with new life and newfound hope. Naruto ordered each girl to pack and take the nearest train to the hidden leaf. Each girl complied, life and hope radiating from their once dead eyes. With that mission complete, Naruto and Fu boarded a train to Magnolia. Naruto was eager to return to his first fiancée and Fu was eager to find a new home, in Fairy Tail. Chapter 3. Yugito. So this is the village hidden in the clouds, remarked Natsu as he and Erza exited the train station in Kumogakure. Erza nodded her head as they made their way down the sidewalk en route to the apartment where their target lived. This is certainly a nice little village, Erza remarked as they passed the hotel to their right and mentally marked it as a potential place to stay once they had secured their target. It really is, agreed Natsu as they came upon the apartment building where their target supposedly lived. They entered the building and climbed the staircase before walking down the hall, NNING each door for the room number the job had specified. Here it is, room 214. Should we knock? It would be rude, and potentially seen as hostile, not to, replied Erza as she knocked on the door. The door opened. Hello, said the blonde shinobi. My name is Yugito ni. Who might you two be? My name is Natsu Dragneel, replied Natsu. Erza Scarlet, said Erza before shaking the girl's hand. We are wizards from a guild known as Fairy Tail. The girl visibly tensed as her eyes narrowed. And what might you be doing here, Fairy Tail wizards? The girl asked with forced politeness. We are here to rescue you, said Natsu. Your village sent a request to my guild asking for a team of S-class wizards to come and take care of you. I see taking care of you as getting you as far from here as possible. It is apparent that your village doesn't want you here, so we are here to take you back to Magnolia with us. A fellow Jinchuriki of yours, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, is an honorary member of our guild. And would be grateful to see you safe. So Naruto is saving me again, Yugito remarked. This time via proxy. Indeed, said Erza. I will be heading to your village's council in order to collect the reward for the job. Natsu will make sure you are safely transported to Magnolia. But first here, requip. In an instant, Yugito's outfit changed to one common for noble wizardry in Fury. Erza then requipped to her stylist armor. With a magical hair brush, Erza caused Yugito's hair to grow out until it touched her mid-shins. There, that's all I can do. If only Evergreen were here. You did wonderful, love, said Natsu before giving Erza a kiss on the lips, causing the watching Yugito to brightly blush. Well, I'm off, exclaimed Erza before taking off. We are alone at last, heard Natsu seductively before capturing Yugito's lips with a lustful kiss. A moment later, clothes were flying as two strangers got to know each other in the most intimate of ways. Yugito moaned as Natsu pushed her face down over her coffee table and entered her, tearing away her maidenhood in the process. Yugito was in heaven as the fiery dragon slayer fucked her like a wild beast. As they both climaxed, Natsu bit into Erza's neck, breaking flesh and causing her sweet life blood to flow into his greedy mouth as he lapped it up. While not as bloodthirsty of creatures as vampires, per se, dragons were a close second. So the taste of the Jinchuriki's sweet life blood was like the hottest of flames to Natsu's palate. He also channeled his magic into the bite mark in order to mark her as his in a way that every dragon or dragon slayer would understand. Erza-chan will be disappointed that she didn't stick around when she finally gets a taste of you, my sexy Jinchuriki, remarked Natsu as he pulled out. Before she could manage to regain her blissfully dulled senses, she could feel her lover's hand spread her rear cheeks and his tip prod her back door. I am a dragon slayer, growled Natsu. We don't do gentle. With that, her hypersensitive nerves felt his tip slip past her sphincter and she groaned as she felt her colon being stretched to its limits as her lover slid home into her rectum. Are you ready, Yugito Haim? Despite her nerves, she nodded firmly. As Natsu began to move, Yugito's mind melted into a puddle of goo, the pleasure of the stimulation of nerves she ever knew she possessed being too much for her formidable psyche to take. Yugito was taken into heaven as she was savagely sodomized by her lover. As Natsu released his seed into her bowels, a wave of contentment washed over her. As he pulled out, Yugito felt as though she could die happy. That was wonderful, Natsu-kun, she breathed. I aim to please, replied Natsu with his patently infectious grin spread across his face. You certainly succeeded, she said. You were wrong however when you said, that was wonderful, said Natsu. Who on Earthland said that I was done with you? Yugito moaned. Her satisfaction as Natsu re-entered her already abused snatch and continued on his quest to fuck her brains out, seemingly determined to do just that. Yugito had the feeling that her rosette lover would succeed in that goal. After packing her scarce belongings, Yugito watched as Natsu burned her apartment with his Dragon Slayer magic, and noticed with amazement that the fire didn't spread to him. Why where else in the building but merely burned out when everything flammable in her apartment was naught but ash. They then left the apartment and Yugito watched as Natsu sealed the metal door shut by, partially melting the area where the door came in contact with the frame. There, now everyone will assume that the evidence of your death is inside, said Natsu. By the time they manage to break in, Mistogen-kun will have already been here to leave the appropriate illusions. Thank you, Natsu, said Yugito sincerely as she hugged her savior and lover. Are you sure that Erza-sama won't mind you and I, you know? I'm positive, said Natsu as he started walking back to the staircase. That's good, said Yugito as she followed him. They walked in silence until they reached the hotel that Natsu had noted earlier. They won't let me in here. They wouldn't if they recognized you, said Natsu. Don't worry, Erza-chan did a perfect job on you. I wouldn't recognize you if I hadn't witnessed your makeover myself. Hi. Yugito agreed, having seen her new appearance in the bathroom mirror before Natsu had burned it up with the rest of the apartment that she had lived in for over 12 years of her life. Hello, Natsu said to the female clerk at the reception desk. I am Natsu Dragneel, a tourist from Fiori. My fiancé and I would like a room to stay in. Just a moment, said the RK as she rummaged through her desk before pulling out a small book which she flipped through before settling on a page which obviously had what she was looking for. What type of suite would you both like? Whatever the best you have is, said Natsu, wanting to treat his new fiancé to a taste of the finer things in life. The Kage's suite is the most lavish unreserved suite we have available, said the clerk. The Daimo suite is currently reserved for the Fire Daimo, who is currently in conference with our Daimo here in the Land of Lightning. The Kage's suite will be fine, said Natsu, knowing from what Lucy and Fried had told him that acting any more enthusiastic about a hotel room will make any clerk believe that they have the upper hand. Inwardly though, he was ecstatic. Here is the key, enjoy your stay, said the clerk politely, handing Natsu a plastic card. The Kage's suite takes up the entirety of the 12th floor, while the Daimo suite is right above it on the top floor. You may take the guest elevator. Which is the one on the right? The one on the left is reserved for employees. Natsu thanked the clerk before taking Yugito by the hand and leading her to the guest elevator. Pushing the up arrow which glowed briefly before the doors opened, the pair stepped inside before the elevator doors closed. Natsu studied the numbered panel before pressing the button that said, 1. 2 inches and holding Yugito steady as the elevator swiftly rose. When the elevator came to a stop, and with a ping the doors opened, Natsu and Yugito walked out, getting their first look of the Kage's suite. This is so extravagant, breathed Yugito. I can't imagine what the bill will be. I mean, it's not like I'm broke, but, Natsu silenced her with a kiss. Don't worry, love, this is my treat, said Natsu. Now, let's order room service. Natsu located the menu for room service and studied it for a moment before handing it to his lover. Tell me what you want. Don't pay attention to the prices. This is my treat for a woman I love. This caused Yugito to blush brightly as she surveyed the menu. She was floored by the prices. He said to ignore them, she reminded herself. Trying to ignore the prices, she looked at the names of the entrees, trying to find something she might like. After a while of contemplation, she handed the menu back to Natsu. Just pick something you think'll like, I can't make heads or tails of that menu. She admitted with a blush. Eyeing the menu intently for a moment, Natsu scratched his chin. Eventually though, he placed the menu back where he had found it before. picking up the phone and dialed the digits needed to call room service. "Hello," a voice said. "This is room service. What can my chefs make for you?" Natsu placed the order without further ado. After Natsu was done ordering, he was told to have a nice day and then heard the dial tone as the room service guy hung up. Natsu promptly hung up the phone. "Do you think we have time for a quickie before the food gets here?" Natsu asked Yugito, who laughed uproariously. "You still haven't had enough of little old me, Natsu-kun?" She asked innocently, fluttering her eyes at him suggestively. "Minx," he accused as he pinned her to the bed and proceeded to relieve her of her clothing before entering her swiftly and harshly. Just like she had been when he had made love to her in her apartment, she w. as thrown into heaven by the pleasure that washed over her as her lover fucked her. Just as they both climaxed, "Excuse me," came a timid voice. Natsu and Yugito both looked over. Standing just in front of the elevator, with a deep blush on her face, was a young bell girl. In front of the bell girl was a cart filled with steaming hot food. "Your food, sir, ma'am." If it was possible, the bell girl's blush darkened as Natsu pointedly looked her up and down before grinning lecherously. "I think we'll take dessert first," purred Natsu as he approached the bell girl. Yugito watched for a moment before following Natsu's lead and approaching the bell girl, who trembled as the Jinchuriki's gaze grew lustful. Natsu grabbed the bell girl and deftly undressed her before picking her up, causing her to squeal. He proceeded to throw the girl face down on the room's king-sized bed. "Want first shot at this one, love?" Natsu asked Yugito. "Nah, I'm good," said the blonde Jinchuriki. "Fuck her nice and hard, Natsu-kun." Hearing the blonde's vulgar epithet, the bell girl's blush returned with full force. Natsu got behind the sexy bell girl and teased her folds with his tip, causing her blush to darken. "What might your name be? Tell me, and I'll give you what you want. I'll fuck you until you can't remember your own name." "Seiyu," she replied. "Seiyu Yagami," she gasped as the pink-haired man behind her entered her swiftly, tearing through her hymen, causing her to wince in pain. She entered heaven as the son of Igneel fucked her daylights out. As they both climaxed, she let out a surprised moan, and as a pair of delicate but strong hands kneaded her breasts, Natsu pulled out, his hard member instantly replaced with an eager mouth as Yugito began eating the brunette out with gusto, causing Seiyu to moan. Seiyu's moan was replaced with a harsh scream as Natsu's tip slipped past her sphincter as he entered her rectum. The combined pleasure of being eaten out and sodomized was too much for Seiyu, and her eyes rolled back into her head as her tether to reality snapped, causing her to fall into a blissful pleasure coma. "I think you broke her, love," said Yugito with humor in her tone. She'll get over it," he said, shrugging. "Until then where were we?" Yugito squealed as Naruto picked her up and threw her down on the bed, entering her without missing a beat. "Let's see if I can fuck a Jinchuriki into a pleasure-induced coma, shall we?" Yugito moaned in agreement. Eventually, Natsu and Yugito did get around to eating. They even shared some with Seiyu once she recovered from her pleasure-induced coma. After they finished eating, Natsu got down on one knee before Seiyu, and Yugito did the same. "Seiyu Yagami, will you marry us?" they asked, causing her to gasp. She quickly nodded, causing them to hug her joyfully. The train ride back to Magnolia was peaceful, thanks to the fact that there were two women instead of one to comfort Natsu in his motion-sick state. They entered the guild hall, Natsu coming face to face with Naruto, who greeted him enthusiastically. "I see we tied in this round," Naruto said, noticing the two girls with Natsu. "You got two as well?" Natsu asked. Naruto nodded and motioned to two girls sitting with Mirajane over at the bar. "The green-haired beauty is Fukuron, Jinchuriki of the Nanabi," said Naruto in introduction. The green-haired woman looked up and met Natsu's gaze before nodding in greeting. The brunette bombshell is Kuretsuchi, the fourth Tsuchikage of Iwagakure. Kuretsuchi also looked up to meet the rosette's eyes before nodding in greeting. "Who have you managed to seduce, my friend?" The blonde beauty is Yugito ni, the Jinchuriki of the Nibi, Natsu introduced. "My brunette bombshell is Seiyu Yagami, daughter of a police chief in a country called Japan." "What was she doing in Kumo?" asked Naruto. "She hasn't told me," replied Natsu, looking to Seiyu in askance, causing her to blush at being singled out. After my B. Rother Light was caught as Kira by a detective called Nier, the Yagami name became trash in the Kanto region, said Seiyu. My father is a respected chief of police, so it's easy for people to ignore that his son was the Kira. My mother and I, on the other hand, didn't have that luxury. After my mother was brutalized and murdered by thugs, my father insisted that I leave Japan. I traveled around a while before settling down in Kumo and getting a well-paying job as a bell girl at the local hotel. How did you get to Earthland? Asked Naruto. Japan is located on Earth, which is Earthland's counterpart in another dimension. Most of the bigger governments on Earth have access to the technology required to make dimensional portals, explained Seiyu. My father, as the chief of police, ordered for a semi-permanent portal to be built at a secured place in the police station. He did that years ago. I used that portal to leave Japan. It was far cheaper, and more fun, than riding an airplane. It sounds like it, said Natsu. Where is the portal, Erza, Yugito, and I will want to meet your father. On this side, the portal is located in the ANBU's root compound in the Hidden Leaf Village, said Seiyu. Danzo-sama was the first person I met in this world. Speaking of Danzo-san, Naruto piped up. I need to call him so that he can have a new identity made for Yugito. Thanks, Naruto, said Natsu, giving his friend a one-armed hug. No problem, Naruto replied, embracing his friend in turn. Makarov smiled as he watched the scene. His children were not only back home, but they had brought fresh blood with them. Fairy Tail was growing stronger as time went, and by the time it came time for him to join Master Mavis in the Great Beyond, Makarov knew that his guild would survive his passing. Even if that moment came tomorrow or years from now. Chapter 4. Introduction to Married Life Part 1. The First Joint Wedding. It was the 4th day in July when the Fairy Tail Guild gathered at Cardia Cathedral for a joint wedding ceremony. 8 of their own would be getting married that day. Standing at the altar in a black suit and tie was the first groom of the day, Naruto Uzuma. He, 7th Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village, S-rank shinobi and Toad Sage of the Neosenin, and honorary member of Fairy Tail. Standing by his side in a form-fitting, low-cut, black strapless dress, was T. He green-haired Jinchuriki of the Nanabi, Fukuron, one of his brides. Well, she was more like a second groom than a bride with her function in the ceremony. Having no living family, and very few living friends, her only friends left being her former landlady and her daughter, who sat in the front row, she opted to forego being walked down the aisle, and also opted to wear a black dress rather than the standard white article. Her dress had no train, and was actually quite short, only coming down to her mid-thigh. She finally opted to forego the customary veil, her face clearly visible to those present. As the ceremony started, Naruto and Fu saw Mira appear on her father's arm and watched as she was led down the aisle. Mira was in a mermaid-style white wedding dress, which hugged her figure. As its train dragged on the floor behind her, she wore the customary veil, which hid her wide smile from those in the crowd. Upon reaching the altar, she let go of her father's arm and took Naruto's hand. "Where's Kuretsuchi?" asked Fu in a whisper. "Waiting for the 3 of us to say our vows," Mira whispered in reply. "She wants the distinction between herself and Fu and I, who are your beta and alpha respectively. I told her it was silly, but she wouldn't budge." "My friends," the minister spoke up, "we gather here today to witness many souls joined together in holy matrimony. If anyone objects to the marriage taking place, speak now or forever hold your peace." The minister paused for a moment, no one said a word. "You will now say your vows, starting with the groom." Naruto took a deep breath. "Mira-chan, you are now and will always be one of my precious people. In fact, you are the most precious of all. I vow to always love you and support you for as long as I draw breath. To me, you are the Alpha and the Omega, my first and my last. I will stand by you for all the days of my life, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part." He then turned to Fu. "Fu-chan, for as long as I've known you, you've been a light in my life. You are one of my most precious people. I vow to always love you and support you for as long as I draw breath. To me, you are the beta, a close second to Mira-chan. I will stand by you for all the days of my life, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. Naruto-kun, began Mira. You are the light of my life. You complete me in every way possible and I am blessed to know you. I vow to always love you and support you for as long as I draw breath. To me, you are everything. I will stand by you for all the days of my life. In sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. She then turned Tofu. Fu-chan, you complete Naruto-kun in ways that I never could. Why? Oh, you are also precious to me and I vow to always love and support you for as long as I draw breath. I will stand by you for all the days of my life, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. Naruto-kun, Begenfu, you have saved my life many times in the past. You are my hero and I don't know what I would do without you. I vow to always love you and support you for as long as I draw breath. To me, you are everything. I will gladly stand by you for all the remaining days of my life, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. She then looked at Mira. Mira-chan, you have been with Naruto-kun for longer than I and I can tell how much he cares for you. You are my alpha, and I vow to submit to you, love you, and support you for as long as I draw breath. You are precious to me. I will stand by you for all the days of my life, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, said the minister. Do you take Mirajane Strauss and Fu-Kiran to be your lawfully wedded wives? I do, Naruto vowed. Mirajane Strauss, do you take Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze to be your lawfully wedded husband and Fu-Kiran to be your lawfully wedded wife? Asked the minister. I do, vowed Mira. Fu-Kiran, do you take Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze to be your lawfully wedded husband and Mirajane Strauss to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, vowed Fu. Kuretsuchi Kamizuru, come forth, ordered the minister. Kuretsuchi immediately appeared at the end of the aisle on her father's arm. Upon reaching the altar, the fourth Tsuchikage released her father's arm and took Naruto by the hand. State your vows. I, Kuretsuchi Kamizuru, take Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Mirajane Strauss, and Fu-Kiran to be my lawfully wedded spouses. Said the Tsuchikage, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. I further vow to submit to Mirajane as the alpha and Fu as the beta. I give them dominion over my body, my soul, and my spirit for as long as I live. I hereby pronounce you all as husband and wives, said the minister. You may kiss. Naruto's lips immediately descended on Mira's. It was a kiss of fiery passion. After breaking away from Mira, Naruto kissed Fu with equal vigor. Finally, Naruto kissed Kuretsuchi as Mira and Fu kissed each other. Finally, Mira and Fu took turns kissing Kuretsuchi. The foursome was then congratulated by their guild mates before taking their seats in the pews. Natsu and Yugito then took their places at the altar. Natsu wore a black suit and tie identical to Naruto's, while Yugito's black dress matched Fu's. Natsu's ceremony went by the same way as Naruto's, with Erza walking down the aisle to join Natsu and Yugito at the altar. Erza's gown was similar to Mira's. The three then said their vows and agreed to marry each other. Next, the minister called for Seiyu, who joined the three at the altar and said her vows. It ended with Natsu kissing Erza first before kissing Yugito, and then kissing Seiyu as Erza and Yugito kissed each other. Erza and Yugito finally took turns kissing Seiyu, and the joint ceremony finally ended. The joint reception that took place at the Fairy Tail Guild Hall was festive enough for two weddings, which it pretty much was for. Naruto, Mira, Kuretsuchi, and Fu retired to Mira's room at Fairy Hills while Natsu and his wives headed back to the Dragon Slayer's house. The 8 newlyweds may have retired for the night, but very little sleeping was actually done. Part 2. Honeymoon Drama. Mirajane sighed in contentment as she watched from her spot on the beach as Fu and Kuretsuchi swam together in the ocean. What are you thinking about, love? Asked the man beside her, her husband, Naruto. Just how wonderful this is, she replied. This really is the ideal honeymoon. Oh, believe me, love, this is just the vacation, said Naruto. The real honeymoon has yet to begin. Show me, insisted Mira. Show me the real honeymoon. Naruto grinned. As you wish, love. Mira felt herself be lifted from the ground. Sure enough, she was on top of her husband, who winked cheekily before kissing her. In a split second, She was relieved of her suit, and in another she was moaning as her husband entered her swiftly. Fu and Kuretsuchi were quickly enraptured by the sight of their husband and wife going at it on the beach. They began to make out heatedly in the water, their suits being quickly removed and thrown to the beach. The real honeymoon began. Yugito let out a moan as Seiyu ate her out. The posts of the bed they were in creaking in protest as she writhed against the mattress. Next to them on the bed, Erza was face down on the bed and moaning as Natsu plowed her from behind. With a bit of random curiosity, Natsu glanced at the window and grinned. Looks like Naruto-san and Mirajane are going at it out on the beach, while Fu-chan and Kuretsuchi-chan are going at it in the water. Are they really? Asked Erza, twisting around to look at him with gleaming eyes. Yes they are, my perverted wife, replied Natsu fondly. We'll have to do that later, decided Erza. Most definitely, agreed Natsu as he groaned and released himself into his red-headed wife. After he pulled out, Erza turned around and kissed him. Pushing Erza towards Seiyu, Yugito took her place under Natsu, lying on her back. My turn, husband. Natsu grinned and entered the blonde Jinchuriki swiftly, causing her to moan in pleasure. Erza, meanwhile, got into a 69 with Seiyu, eating her broom. TTE wife with gusto as said wife returned the favor. While eating her red-headed wife and getting eaten in turn, Seiyu paid close attention to her other wife and husband. As soon as the four hit their respective climaxes, Seiyu removed herself from under Erza and pushed Yugito towards the redhead before taking her place on all fours beneath the Dragon Slayer. Fuck me, dear husband. As Natsu entered her, Seiyu thought that their honeymoon couldn't get better. Part 3. Something unexpected. After getting back from their respective honeymoons, Naruto and Natsu parted ways as Naruto and his wives took a train to Konoha. On the eve of his departure, Naruto visited Natsu to say goodbye. It seems this is goodbye, my friend, Naruto said to Natsu, who was standing in the doorway of his house, having answered the door to Naruto's knock. When are you leaving? Asked Natsu. Tomorrow, said Naruto. Being in Fairy Tail for the last few months was fun and all, but it's time for me to go back to being the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf. I'll visit, said Natsu. Me, Erza, Yugito, Seiyu, Gray, Juvia, Gajiel, Wendy, Alzok, Biska, Freed, Evergreen, Laxus, we all will. You're a member of Fairy Tail and that's never going to change. Not ever. Thank you, Natsu-san, said Naruto before leaving. It was a few days after arriving to Konoha and moving into the Hokage mansion that Mira was cornered by her green-haired wife, who looked unsettled. What's wrong, Fu-chan? I'm pregnant, replied Fu, shocked as Mira kissed her fiercely before hugging her tightly. Oh, Fu-chan, that's wonderful, exclaimed Mira. Have you told Naruto-kun? Fu shook her head. Get ready, Fu-chan. We're going to Hokage Tower right now. Fu nodded as Mira left the room with a spring in her step. Fu fought panic as she got dressed. What is Naruto-kun going to think? She asked herself fearfully as she applied her makeup. What kind of mother am I going to be? Fu left the room with worry in her heart, following her white-haired wife as she exited the front door and began the walk to Hokage Tower. Arriving at Hokage Tower, the kunoichi and wizard made their way to their husband's office, Mira with excitement on her face, and Fu with worry in her eyes. What's up, Mira-chan, Fu-chan? Asked the blonde Hokage of his two wives who had entered his office. Fu-chan's pregnant, I'm pregnant, they responded at the same time. With a smile on his face, Naruto stood up, making his way over to his green-haired wife. That's wonderful news, love, said Naruto as he embraced his fellow Jinchuriki. You're going to make a wonderful mother. I just know it. Fu sighed as she melted into her husband's embrace. Part 4. Tamari. As the months went by, and Fu's baby bump began to show, the people of Konoha grew excited. The popular Namikaze Uzumaki dynasty would soon have an heir. Not only that, the heir would be the offspring of two powerful Jinchuriki. The future of the Hidden Leaf was looking to be more secure than ever before. It was upon the 7th month of Fu's pregnancy that the Namikaze family received a surprise visit from the Kage of the Hidden Sand and his family. Gara-san, exclaimed Naru, too in surprise as he embraced his fellow Jinchuriki and longtime friend. He's not the only one here, came a familiar voice. Tamari Haim, Naruto exclaimed, letting go of one longtime friend in order to greet another. He went to hug Tamari, but was shocked when she drew him into a passionate kiss. Gaara Nisan, said Konkuro, that's our cue to leave the lovebirds alone. This way, Gaara-san, came a voice. Looking over, he spotted another of his fellow Jinchuriki, who had poked her head into the room. She then opened the door and beckoned for him to follow her, which he did, Konkuro following suit. The last thing he saw before he left the room was his sister's naked torso, as she had removed her top and bra to give the man she was hoping to seduce more access to her body. I need mind soap, Gaara thought as he followed the green-haired Jinchuriki down the main hallway of the Hokage mansion. What is it that you want me to do, Tamari Haim? Asked Naruto as he prodded her folds teasingly with his tip, causing her to shiver as pleasure spiked through her body. Go ahead, fuck me, Tamari said after a moment. With a grin, Naruto proceeded to withdraw himself from her until not be. His tip was inside of her before plunging back in, causing her to moan loudly. He did that again a few times before setting into a rhythm. Tamari was a moaning wreck beneath the blonde Jinchuriki as he destroyed her hellishly tight depths. It all came to a head when, with a grunt, he released his seed into her womb. Do you want me to knock you up? He asked her. With a blush she nodded. With a nod, he made a few hand seals. Secret ninja technique. Fertility maximization jutsu. Tamari's midsection glowed for a moment. It is done. If I spill my seed into you again, you are certain to become with child. Tamari blushed again before nodding, signaling for him to proceed. The pleasure centers of Tamari's brain ascended into heavenly realms as Naruto fucked her again. When he released inside of her a second time, she sighed contentedly before losing consciousness. Tamari moved into the Hokage mansion immediately, which surprised no one, although Gaara gave Naruto the, if you hurt my sister I will end you. Friend or not, speech before he and Konkuro left for Suna. Tamari got along well with Mira, Fu, and Kuretsuchi, although the latter was a little put out that her husband fell for W. Had she perceived as one of the blonde bimbo types, but even she eventually realized that while Tamari was blonde, she was hardly a bimbo. When it came time for Fu to give birth, Tamari was already showing. Much to the blonde Kunoichi's joy, Fu gave birth to twin girls, who were named Kushina and Margaret, after Naruto's mother and Fu's former landlady respectively. They're so adorable, cooed Tamari as she held Kushina and Mira held Margaret. Yes they are, agreed Mirajane. Margaret-chan got her mother's green hair, while Kushina-chan got her grandmother's red hair. They are simply precious. Can I hold one? Asked Kuretsuchi. Here, said Tamari, handing baby Kushina over to the brunette Tsuchikage. She then went over to sit by Fu's side. How are you feeling, Fu-chan? Absolutely wonderful, said the green-haired Jinchuriki with a content sigh. I did it, Tamari-chan, I'm a mother now. Pretty soon, you won't be the only one, Fu-chan, said Tamari, pointing to her own bulging stomach. Did Naruto-kun use that fertility jutsu on you, Fu-chan, or did he knock you up au natural? Fu laughed. He did it the natural way, Tamari-chan, she replied. He probably would have knocked you up even without the fancy jutsu. That man has the fertility of the nine-tailed fox in him, after all. Tamari laughed. We'll never know, now will we? She asked. We won't, agreed Fu. The green-haired Jinchuriki smiled faintly before passing out from exhaustion. Chapter 5. Juvia and Sakura. Tamari continued Part 1, Juvia. Juvia Loxer was beyond infuriated. How dare he? She had just witnessed her beloved Gray. She couldn't even begin to think of what she had caught her beloved and that hussy doing. She hadn't yet managed to get past her shock as to just who she had caught Gray. She winced as she caught the lesser honorific in her thoughts with. Juvia could have accepted it even if it would have been just as heartbreaking if she had caught her love interest with her friend Lucy, however. Flashback. Juvia entered the guild hall with jubilation in her heart. She and her beloved Gray-sama had been dating for exactly 1 year. It was a true anniversary. As she searched the room for her beloved, having bought a gift to give him for their dating anniversary, she caught sight of something that crushed her jubilation and turned her emotional state to first confusion, then disbelief, and finally horror. She was so close to her beloved that he would have noticed her immediately. That is, were he not otherwise occupied. As it was, Grey Fullbuster was busy locking lips with a person that Juvia's disbelieving eyes recognized instantly. What is that creepy redhead from Raventail doing here? Sure enough, her beloved Grey Sama was making out with Raventail's own Flare Corona. Juvia doesn't understand, Juvia thought. Why is Grey Sama cheating on Juvia with that woman of all women? Why is he cheating on Juvia? At all. Is Juvia not attractive? Not finding an answer to her mental questions, she turned around and ran away at breakneck speed. END flashback. Desperate for some kind of comfort, she ran down the list of friends that she could potentially confide in. The first name to come to mind was Lucis, but she instantly dismissed the idea. For one, Lucy was one of the girls that Juvia had been mentally prepared to lose her beloved Grey to. Any comfort that Lucy might try to give would be tainted by that reality. She went down through the list of names, dismissing each of her female friends for similar reasons. She then came to the name of her best male friend, Natsu Dragneel. Her mind made up, Juvia quickly made her way over to Erza, her friend's alpha wife. She barely made eye contact as she asked as to where she might find Natsu. Erza directed her to the second floor of the guild hall, where Natsu was apparently searching for a job that he and his friend and rival Naruto might cross paths on. As a general rule, requests from outside of Fury made it to the S-class request board. She thanked Erza before making her way to the second floor, spotting Natsu eyeing the request board with interest. Natsu-kun, she called softly, causing him to turn around. Juvia-chan, greeted Natsu. What can I do for my favorite blue-haired girl? He then shot her that infectious patented Natsu grin. Juvia needs to talk to Natsu-kun, replied Juvia. Juvia needs Natsu-kun to listen to her. I'm all ears, Juvia-chan, said Natsu. Juvia took a deep breath and prepared to confide in her best male friend. Juvia caught Grey-san cheating on her, revealed Juvia. Juvia caught Grey-san making out with that creepy redhead from Raventail. Flare? Asked Natsu, causing Juvia to nod. Natsu enveloped her in his warm embrace. I'm so sorry, Juvia-chan. I can't believe Grey Tem would do that. I always knew the Tem was a complete ice for brains, but I always thought he had more honor than that. Why did he do it, Natsu-kun? Asked Juvia. As Juvia that, unattractive, in a split second, as if in answer, Natsu's lips were upon hers. Upon regaining her wits, Juvia kissed him back. Eventually they broke apart to breathe. Does that answer your question, Juvia-chan? Asked Natsu. Juvia blushed before shaking her head. That answers Juvia's question on her attractiveness, began Juvia, but it doesn't answer her question as to why Grey-san cheated on Juvia in the first place. I have my own question, said Natsu. Why do you always talk about yourself in the third person? Juvia blushed before saying something incoherent. I didn't catch that. Juvia has never thought about it. It's just how Juvia has always talked, said Juvia. Well, I would like it if you referred to yourself in the first person, Natsu told her. Talking in the third person is a habit developed by the servant class to distinguish themselves from their masters. You are not my servant, Juvia-chan, nor are you anyone else's. Juvia will. Juvia began before catching herself. She means, I will try. As a great Jedi Master once said, began Natsu. Try not. Do or do not. There is no try. Juvia blushed. Juvia will. I will do so, then, replied Juvia. Juvia wants. I want Natsu-kun to be proud of me. Juvia paused for a moment to collect her thoughts. This is harder than I thought. You'll get the hang of it, Juvia-chan, Natsu assured his friend. I have faith in you. Juvia's blush deepened. Thank you, Natsu-sama, exclaimed Juvia before noticing the change in honorific. That's what I used to call Grey-san. You're welcome, Juvia-heim, replied Natsu without registering his own change in honorific. Natsu-sama called me Juvia-heim. That means he cares about me as more than a simple friend, realized Juvia. I care about Natsu-sama too. But he already has 3 wives. Does Natsu-sama have it in him for at least one more? She paused and sifted through her feelings for a moment. It doesn't matter now, I need him. Natsu-sama. Hi, Juvia-heim, asked Natsu. Would you make love to me? Asked Juvia timidly. Please say hi. It would be my pleasure. Juvia Heim, replied Natsu as he looked his longtime friend over with undisguised lustfulness in his eyes. Just noticing that look in her longtime friend's eyes, Juvia knew that she was in for a wild ride. As he picked her up bridal style and made a running jump, leapin' out of the guild hall and racing towards his home, her heart was racing as her imagination went wild. Juvia shivered in anticipation as Natsu deftly undressed her and placed her down on his mattress. As he teased her folds with his tip, she whimpered. Are you a virgin, Juvia Heim? Asked Natsu, causing Juvia to blush deeply as she nodded. Good, then I am going to be your first. She winced as he began to slowly push in. He pushed in until he reached her barrier. Are you ready to become a woman, Juvia Heim? She nodded and felt a sharp pain as he tore through her barrier. As he proceeded to fuck her, Juvia was thrust into heaven. She felt something stirring within her, some kind of pressure was building. As Natsu grunted, releasing his load into her waiting womb, she felt herself tighten around him and cried out as she came. Once she had come down from her high, she felt Natsu withdraw from her and his hands spread her rear cheeks. She forced herself to relax as he slid into her virgin rectum, causing her to stretch so wonderfully around his invading tool. As he began to sodomize her, Juvia realized that her longtime friend and now lover was far from done with her. She was in for a long night. Part 2. Visiting Konoha, another ritual. Natsu was filled with relief as the train came to a stop at the station in Konoha. Although his motion sickness had been manageable for a while, traveling alone was never easy. As he exited the train car, he looked around before spotting the man he was looking for. Naruto-san. He gave his friend a manly hug. Natsu-san, you made it, said Naruto. I wasn't sure you'd make it here alone, what with your motion sickness. I almost didn't, admitted Natsu. It was a close call. What is it that you wanted to talk about that you couldn't say over the lacrima? Asked Naruto, getting to the point of the meeting. It involves our little challenge, said Natsu. Tell me, are you at 4 girls or more yet? Hi, Natsu-san, replied Naruto. I am at 4. Perfect. Then we can do this right away, Natsu told him. There's another ritual. The last one involved a tier 3 succubus art, this one involves a tier 2 succubus art. Natsu pulled out the book that he had borrowed from the guild library. Here, Naruto looked over the spell with a gimlet eye, before grinning. I'm beginning to think that the creator of these succubus spells was working with the pervy sage. This is exactly like Ero Sanin's Uber Attraction Jutsu in effect. The only question is where do we perform the ritual to combine the jutsu and the spell. Considering the spell draws on the earth element and nature magic, I'd say a secluded clearing in one of the forests around Konoha would be ideal, said Natsu thoughtfully. Agreed, the jutsu draws on similar chakras, Naruto informed him. There's a nice clearing in the Forest of Death. I go there to train every now and then. Lead on, Naruto-san, said Natsu. Upon entering the clearing, Natsu inspected it with a gimlet eye. This is a pretty high-quality site for a ritual, the Fire Dragon Slayer noted. We should add a second spell to the ritual to make this place permanent ritual grounds. There's a jutsu for that too, said Naruto. It's pure fuinjutsu, which is an Uzumaki specialty. Then let's do it, said Natsu. We'll start with drawing the fuinjutsu seals and runes to make this place permanent ritual grounds. Agreed, said Natsu, retrieving the Uzumaki fuinjutsu quill. Fuinjutsu quills were not as expedient as fuinjutsu pens, but for permanent seals a fuinjutsu quill was not only much more effective, but would create a much more stable chakra flow between the seals. At the northmost edge of the clearing, Naruto sat down and wrote on the ground. Moving to the eastmost edge of the clearing, Naruto sat down and wrote. Standing up, Naruto made his way to the southmost edge of the clearing and sat down. He then wrote. He then made his way to the westmost edge of the clearing and sat down. This time he wrote. Finally, he moved to the center of the clearing and sat down. He wrote. After finishing his part, Naruto turned to Natsu. You're up. Nodding, Natsu drew the pen that Fried had gifted to him for Christmas last year. Making his way over to the edges of the clearing, Natsu began writing the rules of the enchantment. Dot. Dot. Once the enchantment was finished, Natsu turned to his friend rival. Let's start the ritual we came here for. Naruto nodded and pocketed his fuinjutsu quill and ink before drawing out a fuinjutsu pen. Once the ritual was prepared, which involved a lot of blood runes and fuinjutsu seals, the pair prepared themselves for the final part, the incantations. Secret ninja art. Uber attraction jutsu. Incanted Naruto. Succubus arte. Enchantment of uber attraction. Said Natsu. As the magic and chakra fused, the backlash was enough to knock the shinobi and wizard out. They were found this way by Sakura Haruno and Tsunade Senju. What the hell were they doing? Asked Sakura. It looks like some sort of ritual circle, which is not surprising considering the Uzumaki talent for fuinjutsu. Mused Tsunade. But what are these? She pointed to red shapes that didn't look like any fuinjutsu she was familiar with. Those are runes, said Tsunade. The other boy must be a wizard. Oh, Tsunade-sama, the pink-haired one is no mere boy, said Sakura with a hint of lust in her tone. A hint that Tsunade caught. Don't rape the poor boy, Sakura-san, said Tsunade teasingly. Don't worry, Tsunade-sama, said Sakura. What he and I do together will be completely consensual on his part. At least the part he's awake for. I swear, Sakura-chan, you are Samet. I'm's more perverted than Jiraiya-kun ever was, said Tsunade with mock exasperation. I know, said Sakura. Part 3. Sakura. Under the combined care of Tsunade and Sakura, Naruto and Natsu soon made a full recovery from the overly draining ritual. Thank you for healing me, Sakura-chan. Natsu exclaimed, having been met by the Rosette medic Nin in his empty room after dark on what was to be his last night in the hospital of Konoha. Naruto having been discharged earlier that day. Sakura winked at him. Well, if you really want to thank me, she was interrupted by Natsu's lips slamming against hers. The kiss deepened as their tongues waged a war of dominance. The kiss lasted for more than half a minute before the pair ran out of breath. I'm way ahead of you, Sakura-chan, said Natsu once he drew back for air. I don't think you are, retorted Sakura, removing Natsu's hospital gown with a deft hand, leaving the Dragon Slayer naked before her famished eyes. Give me more, pleaded Sakura. I need you. Get down on all fours then, ordered Natsu. I'll fuck you like the horny, perverted bitch you are. Sakura complied and got down on all fours, waving her tailbone enticingly. As Natsu entered her, tearing through the Rosette Kunoichi's hymen, Sakura winced as she moaned in both pain and pleasure. Fuck, cursed Sakura, didn't know this kind of sweet torture was possible. As Natsu began pounding into her, his ball sack smacking against her clit, further stimulating the Rosette medic Nin with each successive thrust, she screamed and moaned to the heavens. Jesus, she exclaimed as she came. Nope, it's just me. Natsu whispered into her ear as he came as well before pulling out of her used snatch and spreading her cheeks with his hands, prodding her back door with his tip teasingly. Enough teasing. Just sodomize me already, mighty Dragon Slayer. Sakura cried out. Natsu grinned wide at her address of him and bit down on her neck enough to draw blood as he slipped past her sphincter and lodged himself deep within her rectum, drawing out a long strangled cross between a shriek and a moan. That sound was not a one-off. He heard it time and time again as he pumped in and out of her rectal cavern. Oh Kami, Natsu-kun, cried Sakura as she came. She fell limp down onto Natsu's hospital bed. Natsu pulled out before snuggling into the Rosette's embrace as Morpheus claimed him. Oh dear Kami, you and Sakura-chan, asked Naruto as he walked into his friend's room to pick him up, finding him lying there awake, with a sleeping Sakura cradled in his arms. What can I say? I offered to repay her for treating me, and that was what she asked for, replied Natsu. Naruto slapped his friend on the back. Well then, you two better head back to Magnolia, said Naruto. Make sure to take care of Sakura-chan for all of the people who love her, myself and Sasuke-kun included. I will, promised Natsu, shaking the Rosette Kunoichi and causing her to stir. Natsu-kun, she smiled upon waking up in the arms of the man she loved. Tsunade and she may have that running joke about the blonde ex-Hokage's Rosette apprentice being a pervert to put the late Toad Sanin to shame. But Sakura hadn't really ever seriously thought about a sexual relationship, let alone a long one, until Natsu had quite literally fallen into her life. Now, though, she wanted to be with her dragon for as long as she lived. She wanted to bear him a litter of baby dragons for them both to raise with love. She wanted him forever, no matter how many other women he had in his life, which if he was anything like her best friend Naruto. He had a lot. They waved goodbye to the blonde, whiskered Hokage at the train station before boarding the train to Magnolia. The ride was the most pleasant Natsu had ever had in any non-living mode of transportation. Upon returning to the guild hall, Natsu was glomped by Juvia and Erza, Yugito and Seiyu hugging him enthusiastically as well. I knew it, thought Sakura with a sigh. Upon returning to Natsu's home for the evening, the rest of Natsu's harem, by silent agreement, left Natsu and Sakura alone to bond. Once alone with Natsu in the bedroom, Sakura stripped off her clothes and joined Natsu in his king-sized bed. Tell me about the others, Sakura prompted, wanting to know about the other women in the life of her beloved. Sakura giggled at that. The sexy and single, Anko Mitarashi. That's the one, confirmed Natsu, causing Sakura to burst out in full-on laughter. Once Sakura righted herself, she motioned for Natsu to continue. Yugito is a Jinchuriki that I saved from Kumo on a job request to rid the village of a threat to their citizens, or some such rubbish. Seiyu is the lovely belle girl that waited to us when we stayed the night at a hotel in Kumo after I burned Yugito's apartment. Mistogen, an illusion magic specialist, will have made it look like Yugito perished in the flames. That Mistogen reminds me of Kurenai-sensei, Sakura said with a giggle. Genjutsu mistress, she explained to his confused look. Right, said Natsu with a nod. Juvia is a newer member of my guild, having joined after the downfall of her former guild, Phantom Lord. A member of their elite squad, the Element 4. She has been no less one of my nakama, and I would die to protect her just as I would die to protect any one of my fairy tale family. Sakura smiled and kissed him. Promise me one thing, whispered Sakura. Anything, replied Natsu easily. If, and only if, you truly love me, began Sakura. Allow me to be the first to bear your children. Of course, said Natsu. This will, of course, require some form of fertility magic, as I am not going to neglect my wives, or Juvia, to avoid knocking them up before you. You have two options. The first option is the most common in Fury. Even non-wizards frequently use this magic via the magical items available in magic shops all over Fury. It is a simple fertility spell. Any Zard worth his or her salt could cast it on you for free. What is the other option? Asked Sakura. I could use my Dragon Slayer magic, said Natsu. The mark one left on your neck. Sakura looked and gasped at the dark runic mark on her neck that didn't look anything like a bit mark. Is the kind of Dragon Slayer magic I'm speaking of. That mark marks you as one of my mates, informing NY who know dragon lore that you are off the market. What I'm speaking of would require reopening that mark, which would be done in another round of passionate love-making. I'd have to start drinking your blood and continue until I reached a climax. There is no maybe with this kind of magic. You will get pregnant if you choose this option. You will also be mine forever. You, do it, said Sakura resolutely. Make me yours forever as you impregnate me with a baby dragon slayer. No can do, I'm afraid, said Natsu. You'll at least have twins, if not more. The mates of dragon slayers give birth to litters. Sakura salivated at the thought. I'm ready, said Sakura simply. As he crushed his lips to hers and fondled her breasts, she moaned into his mouth. Fuck me, she ordered. Pushing her down onto his bed, he swiftly entered her while biting into the mark on her neck, drawing blood which he began to drink, the dragon part of him savoring the taste of fresh blood. He continued to drink as he pounded her. The combination of the pleasure of his thrusts and her growing blood loss caused Sakura to become weary, pliable jello beneath the mighty dragon slayer. As Natsu and Sakura hit their mutual climaxes, Natsu stopped drinking from Sakura's neck and pulled out and away, watching as the magic caused the mark to re-heal, only leaving a narrow sigil to indicate that it had been successful. Both lovers snuggled into each other's embrace as Morpheus claimed them. Part 4. Temari continued. As life in the Hokage manor went on, Temari's baby bump became more and more prominent. Now Temari, who was normally self-conscious about her appearance, was surprised to find that she did not mind gradually growing to the size an infant whale. It helped that Naruto continued to smile at her, lovingly and ravish her with his raptor-like gaze every time he saw her. That they still made passionate love to both each other and the other 3 women in the house helped a lot to make her love being pregnant. Especially as she knew that the love child of Naruto and herself was growing inside her womb. Temari was touched, if a little amused, by how much Mira, Fu, and Kuretsuchi pampered her as her pregnancy progressed. It was not an odd phenomenon for the 3 to draw her a bath or lay out an outfit for her. The reason that she barely even noticed the transition from regular to maternity clothes was because she wasn't the one picking out her outfits. As her due date grew closer, Temari grew more excited. She was going to be a mother. Now, she already felt like one of Kushina and Margaret's 4 mothers. But this child would be hers. She was lying on the couch in the living room of the Hokage mansion, watching reruns of House, when her water broke. Rather than take her to the Konoha hospital, Naruto called Tsunade in to act as the midwife. Naruto held her hand as she went into labor. She likely broke every bone in his hand as she clenched it. Temari gave birth to a healthy son, whose name became Gara Minato Uzumaki Namikaze. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.